Welcome to the video on an in-depth overview of Martin Heidegger's life and works. This video is structured as follows. First, we look at Heidegger's early life and education. Next, we turn to Heidegger's academic career. Then, we look at influences on Heidegger's work. Then we turn to the meat of the video, important philosophical concepts. In this section, we look at the concepts of Dasein, being in the world, authenticity, the question of being, and Heidegger's critique of technology. We then look at political controversies surrounding Heidegger, and then finally we look at his later life. Martin Heidegger was born on September 26, 1889 in Meßkirch, Germany. His early life in the small rural town of Meßkirch was marked by a modest Catholic upbringing, which played a critical role in shaping his philosophical inquiries. The influence of his religious upbringing was evident in his early academic pursuits, which initially leaned towards theology. Heidegger's journey into philosophy began at a young age, influenced by his upbringing in a household that valued education despite its modest means. His parents both played a pivotal role in fostering an environment of intellectual curiosity. This environment, coupled with his exposure to religious teachings, laid the foundation for his lifelong engagement with existential and metaphysical questions. Heidegger's formal education commenced at the local gymnasium, where he first encountered philosophical and theological works. He was especially drawn to the works of Brentano and Aristotle, which would later influence his approach to phenomenology and ontology. His academic prowess earned him a scholarship to the University of Freiburg, a turning point in his intellectual journey. At the University of Freiburg, Heidegger's philosophical interests deepened and diversified. He studied under Edmund Husserl, the founder of Phenomenology, and this mentorship profoundly influenced Heidegger's philosophical trajectory. Under Husserl's guidance, Heidegger began to question the fundamental nature of being, a theme that would become central to his philosophical work. Heidegger's early interests were not confined to phenomenology alone. He engaged deeply with existential questions influenced by the works of Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Fyodor Dostoevsky. These existentialist influences were instrumental in shaping Heidegger's perspective on individual existence, freedom, and authenticity, themes that he would later explore in his seminal works. Heidegger's academic career, characterized by various teaching positions and a complex relationship with Husserl, played a crucial role in the development and dissemination of his philosophical ideas. His career in academia was not just a path of professional growth, but also a journey of intellectual evolution deeply influenced by his engagement with phenomenology under Husserl's mentorship. Heidegger began his academic career in earnest after completing his doctoral thesis in 1913 at the University of Freiburg. His early work, influenced by his studies under Husserl, was marked by a deep engagement with phenomenological methodologies. However, Heidegger's approach began to diverge from Husserl's ideas as he sought to explore the question of being more profoundly. This divergence would later become a defining feature of his philosophical identity. In 1915, Heidegger took up a lecturing position at the University of Freiburg, marking the start of his formal teaching career. His lectures during this period were well received, attracting a growing number of students interested in his innovative approach to philosophy. In 1923, Heidegger moved to the University of Marburg, where he further developed his philosophical ideas. It was here that he began to gain significant recognition, drawing in students from various disciplines intrigued by his challenging and original thoughts. The relationship between Heidegger and Husserl was both personal and professional. Initially, Heidegger viewed Husserl as a mentor and was greatly influenced by his phenomenological approach. This influence is evident in Heidegger's early work, which bears the marks of Husserl's methodological rigor. However, as Heidegger's thoughts matured, he began to critique and move beyond Husserl's framework, particularly in his understanding of ontology and the nature of being. This intellectual departure was not just a divergence in thought, but also marked a personal distancing between the two philosophers. Despite this growing intellectual rift, Husserl's influence on Heidegger's work remained significant. Heidegger's exploration of phenomenology, specifically his focus on the lived experience of being, can be seen as an extension and transformation of Husserl's ideas. Heidegger's emphasis on the existential aspect of human life and his exploration of concepts such as Dasein, a term he used to denote the uniquely human way of being, were in many ways a response to what he saw as the limitations of Husserl's phenomenological method. Heidegger's return to the University of Freiburg in 1928 marked another significant milestone in his academic career. He succeeded Husserl as the chair of philosophy, a position that further solidified his status as a leading philosopher. His return to Freiburg coincided with the publication of his seminal work, Being and Time, in 1927, which had a profound impact on the philosophical community and solidified his relationship as a groundbreaking thinker. Heidegger's philosophical thought was profoundly shaped by a confluence of influences, ranging from the traditions of phenomenology and existentialism to the ideas of key philosophers such as Aristotle, Immanuel Kant, and Friedrich Nietzsche. This rich tapestry of intellectual influences not only defined his philosophical approach, but also contributed to his lasting impact on various philosophical domains. Phenomenology, as a philosophical movement, played a central role in Heidegger's thought. Initially introduced to phenomenology through the work of Husserl, Heidegger adopted and then significantly transformed this philosophical approach. Phenomenology, in its original form under Husserl, was concerned with the structures of experience and consciousness. Heidegger, however, took phenomenology in a new direction, focusing on the question of being, or Sein in German, and the nature of human existence, or Dasein in German. This shift represented a move away from a purely descriptive phenomenology to an interpretive and ontological one. Heidegger's unique approach to phenomenology was characterized by his emphasis on the temporal and existential aspects of human life, and his questioning of the very foundations of our understanding of existence. Existentialism, though not a label Heidegger personally embraced, is another significant influence on his work. His focus on the individual's experience of being in the world, the notion of authenticity, and the confrontation with existential themes such as anxiety and death align closely with existentialist concerns. The existentialist movement, with figures like Søren Kierkegaard and Nietzsche as its forebears, provided a framework for Heidegger to explore the human condition in a deeply personal and philosophical manner. Heidegger's work, especially in Being and Time, reflects a profound engagement with existentialist themes, even as he transcends and redefines them in his unique ontological inquiry. Aristotle's influence on Heidegger is evident in Heidegger's interest in ontology and metaphysics. Heidegger's early works show a detailed engagement with Aristotle's metaphysics, especially the concept of substance and the question of being. Heidegger reinterpreted Aristotle's ideas through his phenomenological lens, leading to a novel approach to fundamental philosophical questions. Kant's critical philosophy, especially his works on metaphysics and epistemology, also significantly influenced Heidegger. Heidegger's engagement with Kant focused on the nature of human understanding and the limits of human reason. This engagement is particularly evident in Heidegger's later work, where he explores the nature of truth, language, and the limitations of traditional metaphysical inquiry. Nietzsche's philosophy was another major influence on Heidegger, especially in Heidegger's later works. Heidegger's interpretation of Nietzsche focused on themes of nihilism, the critique of modernity, and the concept of the Overman, or Übermensch in German. Heidegger saw Nietzsche's declaration of the death of God and the resulting crisis of values as central to the modern existential and philosophical condition. The concept of Dasein is central to Heidegger's philosophical project and represents a significant departure from traditional philosophical inquiries into human existence. In Heidegger's framework, Dasein is a term that denotes the very essence of human existence, offering a novel approach to understanding the nature of being. A quick note here. Heidegger distinguishes between beings with a lowercase b, these are things in the world like dogs and cats and trees and tables and chairs, and being with an uppercase B, which is what allows things to show up in the world. If something exists in some way, then it has being with a capital B. Dasein, a German word that literally translates to being there or presence, is used by Heidegger not in its ordinary sense, but as a term to capture the unique way in which human beings exist. For Heidegger, Dasein is distinguished by its capacity to question its own being and to recognize its existence as a problem to be pondered. This self-reflective nature sets Dasein apart from other beings. The importance of Dasein in Heidegger's philosophy can't be overstated. Heidegger views Dasein as the key to unlocking the question of the meaning of being with a capital B. Unlike traditional metaphysics, which often objectifies human existence as just another thing among things, Heidegger's concept of Dasein places human existence at the center of philosophical inquiry. It shifts the focus from a detached analysis of abstract concepts to an examination of the lived, experiential reality of human beings. Dasein's relationship to time and being, with a capital B, is another crucial aspect of Heidegger's thought. Heidegger argues that Dasein is fundamentally temporal. It's not just situated in time, but its very being is constituted through temporality. This temporality is not just a linear progression of moments, but a complex interplay of past, present, and future. Dasein, in Heidegger's view, is always already thrown into a world with a past, while simultaneously projecting itself towards future possibilities. This projection is not about concrete plans or actions, but rather about the potentiality and openness of Dasein's being. Furthermore, Heidegger emphasizes the concept of being towards death as a fundamental aspect of Dasein. This is not a morbid fascination with death, but an acknowledgement that the finitude of life and the inevitability of death are essential to understanding the nature of Dasein. By confronting its finitude, Dasein gains an authentic perspective on its existence, allowing it to live more fully in the present. An in-depth analysis of Dasein reveals its centrality in understanding human existence. Heidegger posits that Dasein is characterized by care, or Sorge in German, which signifies a fundamental state of being where Dasein is always concerned with its own being and the world that it inhabits. This care structures all of Dasein's activities and relationships, making it the basis of all human existence. Moreover, Dasein's existence is not solitary. It's always already in a world shared with others, a concept Heidegger terms being with, or Mitsein in German. This social dimension of Dasein emphasizes that understanding human existence requires considering our interactions and relationships with others. Heidegger also discusses the concept of thrownness, or in German, Geworfenheit, which refers to the fact that Dasein finds itself in a specific historical and cultural context that it did not choose, yet must navigate. This aspect of Dasein underlines the idea that much of what defines our existence is beyond our control, and yet we must take responsibility for our being in the world. Heidegger's concept of being in the world is a cornerstone of his philosophical exploration of human existence, fundamentally challenging the traditional Cartesian dualism that separates the mind from the external world. This concept is central to understanding Heidegger's departure from conventional Western metaphysics and his novel approach to ontology. Heidegger's notion of being in the world asserts that Dasein is fundamentally and inextricably connected to the world. This connection is not a mere juxtaposition of a being within physical location, the world. Rather, it's an intricate, interdependent relationship where Dasein and the world are mutually constitutive. In Heidegger's framework, to exist is to be immersed in a world that is not just a passive backdrop, but an active, integral component of one's being. This perspective stands in stark contrast to Cartesian dualism, which posits a clear distinction between the mind, or in Latin, res cogitans, and the physical world, or in Latin, res extensa. In Descartes' view, the mind is a distinct, non-material entity capable of existing independently of the physical world. Heidegger, however, rejects this separation. For him, human beings are not isolated thinking things detached from the world. Instead, they're beings whose very nature is to be entwined with the world that they inhabit. Heidegger's rejection of this Cartesian dualism underlines a more holistic understanding of existence, where the mental and the physical are not separate realms, but aspects of a unified way of being. Understanding being in the world requires exploring how humans interact with their environment. Heidegger introduces the concept of readiness to hand, or Zuhandenheit in German, to describe how objects in the world are encountered in a practical manner. When engaged in everyday activities, objects are not perceived as mere physical entities. Instead, they're integrated into our activities. For example, a carpenter does not see a hammer merely as an object with certain physical properties, but as a tool for hammering. This understanding is not intellectual, but practical and experiential. This practical engagement with the world is disrupted when something goes wrong, leading to what Heidegger calls presentness at hand, or in German, Vorhandenheit. In such instances, the smooth flow of activity is interrupted, and the tool becomes an object of contemplation, revealing its properties and our relationship with it in a different light. This shift in perspective, and, in fact, in phenomenological and ontological being, reveals the complexity of our relationship with the world and the objects within it. Heidegger's exploration of authenticity and inauthenticity provides a crucial insight into his understanding of Dasein. These concepts are integral to his philosophical inquiry into the nature of being, especially in how individuals relate to themselves and the world around them. Authenticity, in Heidegger's philosophy, refers to a mode of existence where an individual lives in accordance with their true self and potentialities. It's not about adhering to some external standard or moral code, but about a genuine engagement with one's own being and the possibilities of existence that are unique to oneself. Authenticity involves a deep awareness and acknowledgement of one's freedom and the attendant responsibility for one's choices and actions. This concept of authentic existence is set against the backdrop of inauthenticity, which characterizes much of everyday life. Inauthenticity arises from societal conformity, where individuals live according to the expectations and norms imposed by society rather than their own genuine choices. This mode of existence is marked by what Heidegger calls the they, or sometimes translated as the they-self, or das Man in German, which represents the anonymous collective influence of society that dictates how individuals should think, act, and perceive of the world. In this state, individuals lose their sense of self and become alienated from their true potentialities. Existential anxiety, or what Heidegger terms angst, plays a significant role in the movement from inauthenticity to authenticity. This form of anxiety is not about specific fears or concerns, but about a deeper, more profound feeling of disquiet that arises from confronting the fundamental aspects of existence: freedom, isolation, and finitude. It is in experiencing this angst that individuals realize the inauthenticity of their existence and the possibilities for a more authentic way of being. This realization can be unsettling, but is essential for the transition towards authenticity. In terms of practical implications, living authentically, according to Heidegger, means embracing one's individuality and making choices that are genuinely one's own. It involves a conscious effort to resist the seductive pull of conforming to the they, and instead facing the anxiety and uncertainty that comes with taking responsibility for one's own existence. Authentic living requires a constant process of self-examination and reflection on one's values, choices, and actions, ensuring they align with one's true self. Authenticity in everyday life also entails a different approach to time and existence. Heidegger emphasizes the importance of being fully present and engaged in the current moment, recognizing that each moment is a potential site for authentic existence. This mindfulness of the present is coupled with an awareness of one's mortality, which Heidegger sees as a motivating force for living authentically. The acknowledgement of death as an inevitable and defining aspect of human existence serves to highlight the urgency and importance of embracing one's authentic self. Heidegger's central philosophical pursuit, the question of being, is at the heart of his entire philosophical endeavor. This question, which seeks to understand the nature of being, with a capital B, itself, is not just a query into what entities, or beings, with a lowercase b, exist, but a deeper, more fundamental inquiry into what it means to be, with a capital B. Heidegger opens this inquiry by examining the historical neglect of the question of being in Western philosophy. He observes that while the history of philosophy is replete with investigations into various entities, or beings, the question of what it means for something to be is largely overlooked or assumed as understood. From ancient Greek philosophy to modern thought, the focus has been predominantly on categorizing and understanding the nature of different beings without adequately addressing the underlying question of what constitutes being itself. According to Heidegger, this neglect stems partially from the tendency of traditional metaphysics to prioritize presence, substance, and constancy. This focus has led to a static understanding of being, where the dynamic, evolving nature of existence is underplayed or ignored. Heidegger argues that this oversight has profound implications, limiting our understanding of the world and our place in it. Interpreting the question of being, then, becomes a crucial task for Heidegger. He posits that this question is not merely an academic or abstract concern, but is deeply connected to every aspect of human existence. The question of being, for Heidegger, goes beyond metaphysical speculation. It's about uncovering the conditions that make any understanding of beings possible. It's an inquiry into the very structures that underlie our experience of the world. Heidegger emphasizes that this question is essential in philosophy because it addresses the most fundamental aspects of our existence. By understanding the nature of being, we gain insight into our nature as beings who question, think, and exist. This understanding is not just theoretical, it has practical implications for how we live our lives, how we relate to others, and how we engage with the world. Furthermore, Heidegger argues that the question of being is intertwined with language and history. He suggests that our understanding of being is mediated through language, which both reveals and conceals aspects of being. Thus, the inquiry into being also involves a critical examination of the language we use and the historical contexts in which our understanding of being has evolved. The question of being, as formulated by Heidegger, thus represents a profound and radical shift in philosophical thought. It moves away from a focus on beings and their properties to an exploration of the underlying nature of existence itself. This shift opens up new ways of thinking about ourselves, our relationship to others, and the world, challenging us to reconsider the most basic assumptions we have about reality. By recentering philosophy on the question of being, Heidegger invites us to engage in a deeper, more meaningful exploration of what it means to exist, a question that resonates across all dimensions of human life. Heidegger's critique of modern technology and his concept of enframing represent significant components of his later philosophical work. These ideas reflect his deep concern about the ways in which technology transforms human perception and existence, and they have profound implications for understanding the role of technology in modern society. Heidegger's critique of modern technology is not a simple condemnation of technological advancements or a nostalgic longing for a pre-technological era. Rather, it's a nuanced critique of the mindset and existential orientation that modern technology engenders. Heidegger believed that technology, as it developed in the modern era, brought with it a specific way of understanding and relating to the world, which he saw as deeply problematic. Central to Heidegger's critique is the concept of enframing, or in German, Gestell. Enframing, according to Heidegger, is the mode of revealing or the way of understanding being that comes with modern technology. This mode turns everything, including nature and human beings, into a standing reserve, or in German Bestand, a repository of resources to be exploited and manipulated for human ends. Enframing creates a world where entities are valued not for what they are in themselves, but for their utility, their capacity to be harnessed and used. This perspective, Heidegger argues, leads to a dangerous forgetting of being. In a world dominated by technological enframing, the mystery, beauty, and intrinsic value of beings are obscured as everything is reduced to its function or use value. This reductionist view not only devalues the natural world, but also diminishes human existence itself, as humans too become resources to be optimized and managed. In analyzing technology's role in modern existence, Heidegger is not arguing for the abandonment of technology. Instead, he calls for a different relationship with technology, one that's aware of its enframing nature and seeks to find a more balanced, thoughtful way of engaging with it. Heidegger suggests that we need to cultivate a more reflective stance towards technology, recognizing both its potential and its limits, and being mindful of how it shapes our understanding of the world and our place in it. Heidegger's career, while marked by significant philosophical contributions, was also marred by political controversies, particularly his involvement with the Nazi Party. This aspect of his life has been a subject of intense scrutiny and debate. Heidegger's association with the Nazi Party began in 1933, the same year he was appointed rector of the University of Freiburg. His membership in the party and his role as rector coincided with the rise of the Nazis in Germany. During his tenure as rector, Heidegger delivered a number of speeches that seemed to align with Nazi ideology, and he implemented several policies in line with the regime's goals, including the enforcement of Nazi educational reforms. This period of his life is often seen as a stain on his legacy, raising questions about the relationship between his philosophical ideas and his political actions. The extent of Heidegger's commitment to Nazi ideology has been a matter of intense debate among scholars. Some argue that his involvement was a pragmatic decision to maintain his position and influence within the academic community, while others contend that there was a deeper ideological alignment. Regardless of the extent of his commitment, his association with the Nazi Party has had a significant impact on his reputation, leading to widespread criticism and a re-evaluation of his philosophical work. After the end of World War II, Heidegger's life and career entered a new phase. He was briefly banned from teaching due to his association with the Nazi Party, a ban that was lifted in 1951. Despite this, the shadow of his political past continued to loom over his philosophical activities. Heidegger, in his post-war writings, did not directly address his involvement with the Nazi regime, a silence that has been interpreted in various ways by scholars and critics. Some see it as a refusal to confront his past, while others view it as consistent with his philosophical focus on being and existence rather than historical and political contingencies. Heidegger's later years were marked by continued philosophical exploration and by a complex legacy shaped by both his intellectual contributions and the controversies surrounding his life. His work in this period reflected an evolution and a deepening of the themes he had engaged with throughout his career, contributing significantly to his enduring influence in the field of philosophy. In the later stages of his career, Heidegger's philosophical work underwent significant developments. While his earlier work, most notably Being and Time, focused on existential and phenomenological analysis, his later works shifted toward a more poetic and meditative exploration of philosophy. This period is characterized by his engagement with the concept of the fourfold, or in German das Gewalt, comprising earth, sky, mortals, and divinities. This concept reflects Heidegger's deepening exploration into the nature of being and existence, emphasizing a more holistic and interconnected understanding of the world. Heidegger also revisited and expanded upon earlier themes, such as the notion of Dasein and the question of being, often in a more contemplative and less systematic manner than in his earlier works. His later writings, characterized by a dense and poetic style, continued to influence philosophical thought, especially in the realms of existentialism, hermeneutics, and postmodernism. Heidegger died on May 26, 1976, in his hometown of Meßkirch. His death marked the end of a profoundly influential and controversial philosophical career. His contributions to philosophy, specifically in the areas of phenomenology, existentialism, and ontology, have had a lasting impact on the field. Heidegger's work continues to be studied, debated, and critiqued, a testament to its depth, complexity, and significance. Thanks for watching this video on an overview and exploration of Martin Heidegger's life and works. I'm Andrew Chapman.